Hey everyone, thanks for joining. This is Challenger's panel discussion focused on the topic of becoming a low effort service organization. I'm Amy Smith and I'm a director here at Challenger, which means I oversee client delivery across our customer talent management solutions business, and I also help our ongoing product development. I've been with the CEB Challenger brand family for over 15 years, and the reason why I say brand family is that there's a bit of history here that might explain why you've heard about the Effortless research from a few different related sources. So a quick snapshot on Challenger. We provide consulting services and learning products to implement low effort transformation in service organizations. We were previously a part of a best practices research firm called CEB, which was acquired by Gartner in 2017. And in 2018, Challenger spun off to become the boots on the ground implementation business. So you all hopefully already heard about the concept of being a low effort organization from Matt Dixon's keynote earlier this morning. But as a quick recap, the Effortless research led to the publishing of the book, The Effortless Experience. The transformation opportunities that we're going to be talking about today are a result of our direct client feedback that they needed a little bit of help in implementing the strategies that are outlined in the book. But more importantly, I'm joined here by several clients I've had the pleasure of working with over the years. All are in various stages of their journey to being a low effort organization. So I want to kick off by having everyone introduce themselves. Lea, I'll start with you and we'll go right down the line. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your role at Thomson Reuters. I'll have Brian follow, and then Marian would love to have you close us out.
Great. Well, I am Vice President of Customer Service, and at Thomson Reuters, I'm in the legal business, so we are selling our services and print materials to lawyers and corporate and counsel, judges, and I run the area where we deal with all the billing inquiries, returns, credits, account maintenance. And so I do think it's one of those areas where customers are calling because they have a problem. And so how do you go about, how much effort do you put in, and does the customer have to put in to resolve that is really important to us. And I'll turn it over to Brian.
Thanks, Lea. I'm Brian Fenerty, and I lead the client-facing recruiting function for a product at Indeed.com called Indeed Hire. We have a small team of 300 people now who are helping our clients navigate the talent market, working with job seekers, working with clients, and trying to bring together quick solutions and easy solutions to what can often be kind of nuanced or very personal problems in hiring talent. I came to this from a background in talent acquisition and creating recruiting solutions, so I'm a little more focused on the talent side than the operations side, and look forward to sharing how we're putting Challenger to work. And Marian, over to you.
All right, thank you, Ryan. So I am Marian Favors, and I am the Director of Customer Support Operations at my organization. And what my company does is we manufacture and distribute medical devices for minimally invasive surgeries. And my customers are hospitals, surgery centers, and doctors' offices. And so I'm responsible for actually order management, also contract execution, as well as billing. And then last but not least, I'm responsible for the customer experience. And that's one of the areas that we always focus on. We're always trying to make it easier for our customers when we are dealing with them. So thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So to set the scene for today's conversation, I'm going to talk a little bit more about just a brief recap on the research that led to our Effortless Talent Management strategy. And if you want some more information, I'd absolutely recommend watching Matt Dixon's keynote from earlier today. But our research kicked off by a simple desire to dig a little bit deeper in the role of customer service in driving customer loyalty. And that led us to a rather inconvenient research finding that customer service is typically driving disloyalty. More specifically, any service interaction is 4 times more likely to drive disloyalty than to drive loyalty. So what are the service teams doing during these interactions that is causing so much disloyalty? It's the things that you see listed right here on the page, and probably another 10 things that we don't have room for. It's things like channel switching, transfers, robotic service, and all of these have one thing in common. They're all sources of customer effort. It's the work that we're putting on the customer's plate to get their problems fixed. So there's one dominant research-backed tactic to mitigate this problem, and that's by making these interactions not delightful, but effortless. So before we go too much further into an effortless experience, I want to make sure everyone understands where and how customers perceive effort. And we have some data on that. We're a research organization. You hear the word data from us a lot. So there are two components of effort. There's do and feel. The do is your systems and processes, how many things or steps need to be done and how hard were each of them. The feel is just the human behavior side of effort. It's how I, as a consumer, feel when I hang up the phone or disengage from a chat. And what we find is organizations are putting a disproportionate amount of their money towards the do side. Nearly 73% of investments are ending up here. And it makes sense. It's easy to measure ROI. The technology is super attractive. But the reality is that customers think about effort far differently than we expect. 65% of their perception of effort is how they feel. So when you put on your consumer hat, you can probably remember at least one time that you were dreading to call customer service, you were ready to threaten canceling, going with a competitor, and when you got the rep on the phone, the experience just wasn't quite as bad as you had built up in your head, and everything that happened before the rep greeted you melted away just enough to keep your loyalty intact. So this is why we say that effort is primarily a talent challenge. Your reps have a lot of control over the direction that this can go. They're engaging with your customers one-on-one every day. And unfortunately, a lot of organizations just aren't empowering them to make that a low effort experience. They're not empowering them to take any measures to preserve that customer loyalty. So I'm going to pause there because Lea, Marian, and Brian have already embarked on this journey, and their reps are out there engineering the experience so that it feels like less effort, even if what the customer has to do can't be changed. So I want to ask, and Marian, I'll start with you this time, what motivated you to adopt Effortless as a talent strategy, and what specifically brought you to Challenger?
All right, thank you. So we're always looking for ways to improve the customer experience. The customer experience is not stagnant. So as the customer demands evolve as an organization, we also have to evolve. And so with healthcare, there were a lot of changes that were being made with respect to their needs. They needed the supplier to be able to help them to drive cost out of their business model and so forth. And so we had to figure out, how do we really do that? And so we were dealing with high attrition, like most contact centers are, with high attrition. And then we also needed to figure out a way, how do we build our staff's skills up so that they can take more of a consultative approach when it comes to dealing with the customer. And so as a result of that, we actually, on our own, we read the Effortless Experience back in 2015, and we implemented some of those strategies. And we knew that we were onto something because we are a J.D. Power certified organization. And the next year that we certified, our customer satisfaction scores jumped 29 points. That was pretty significant. But then we plateaued. And that's when we actually brought the big guns in. That's when we brought Challenger in to help us to try to take our service effortless experience strategy to that next level. And with that, we focused on three things. We focused on how do we help the team develop these low effort competencies, and we changed our whole competency model. They went through capability training for low effort experience. We also had to look at how we were dealing with our supervisors. If we're trying to upskill our employees, we absolutely had to also upskill our supervisors. So we took them through a coaching model. And then thirdly, we also looked at our quality assurance program. We wanted to make sure that we were actually coaching people on the right things. We moved from this checklist scorecard to a competency-based scorecard that really helped us to focus on those things that would drive a low effort experience. And as a result of that, that following year, our score jumped up 43 points. And this is why we came to Challenger, to help us to improve the customer experience, and it was very successful. Thank you.
Thanks, Marian. Lea, I think you were around the same time that Marian started deploying the Effortless Experience. Would love to hear a little bit about what made you choose the Effortless Experience and what brought you to Challenger.
Yeah, our story is kind of interesting. At the time, I was reporting to the head of sales. So he had sales and service, and he was somewhat new to service. And so he was asking me, well, what kind of service training do you do? And at the time I was like, well, service training, it's embedded in everything we do, right? And so, but he got me thinking, and should we be looking at something more formal so that we could increase our scores as well? And around the same time, that's when Matt Dixon's book, Effortless Experience, was out. And so rather than calling around, talking to a lot of different folks who offer this kind of training, you know, all of my managers and myself, we had read the book and we're like, let's call Challenger, let's use the Effortless Experience. It seems like a no-brainer. And at that time, especially, it was just on the cutting edge. And so that's why we signed up with Challenger. It just made sense at that time.
Great.
And you know what? I really like the approach that it's, and I hear you calling it a talent development program, and it really is a win-win. Your representatives feel invested in when you use this program versus being controlled or having to say things through a script. It's not about that. And so I like that it's a win for the business, the customers, and the employees.
I love that. Yes, nobody likes to feel like a robot with too many scripts.
That's right.
All right, and Brian, this is all a little bit newer to you, but well, and more recent in your decisions to become more effortless and to come to Challenger.
Yeah, so I think for us, we may have come at this sideways or counterintuitively, which isn't unusual for us. We're a disruptive product in our industry, and the way we're doing that is by combining people with our technology. So we have a big platform. Most people have heard of Indeed.com, or if you've ever Googled a job title, it'll come up. We're partnering people with our technology to help people be more efficient. So we came to Challenger by way of looking for a way to maybe put some context around the success that our most successful hiring specialists were already having. So we had sketched out a model of the people. We'd gotten pretty good at hiring people to be successful, and we were just beginning to see how what was happening was our product is relatively successful, but we're going to ask you to do certain things as a client that might not be that easy in retrospect. And the people who seemed to be good at it fit inside this controller personality that we discovered online. So my boss and I went on a journey of discovery and talked to everyone we could find listed in that article and otherwise, looking for an assessment, because coming from so many years in talent, my idea was immediately we will just hire all these controller personalities and that will solve our problem. And what we found, luckily enough, was there's more context to it and there's greater solutions to be found. And the more we looked into it, the more we began to understand that we had been going down a checklist route to ensure quality, or to ensure that we were doing all the parts of our job. And now we're thinking more broadly in terms of how we can link making things easier for our clients to also how the product works, and how we're developing different parts of the product in different priorities to support our hiring specialist growth. But for us, primarily, it is making things easier, but primarily it is that it is a big part of our talent value proposition for our teams. The methodology of how to deal with customers and ask them to do things are hard and make it a little easier has been very appealing to our teams.
It's great because what we have learned from some of the research is that controller personality is obviously key to driving effortless interactions. and controllers are out there frequently enough. So it's good to have a training program that is essentially giving them that toolkit that they need.
Yeah, and what we learned is it's also very freeing for people who aren't naturally the controller personality to get some techniques or to have a different frame of reference, right? To be able to look at it through a different lens, or coach, more specifically, we're seeing a lot of value in the coaching. Being able to coach through a different lens or through a different methodology has been really powerful for our teams.
Well, I think that sets us up perfectly to talk a little bit about these different products that you all have referenced. So, you know, when we talk about being a low effort organization and empowering reps, a successful transformation can't just be about training the reps on how to be effortless. So when we work with organizations, we're pulling a lot of levers, and there's seen here on the page. Starting at the top, we have supervisor coaching. A lot of supervisors are promoted from the ranks of high-performing reps, and that's a great thing. But we know that the skill set for being a great rep isn't necessarily that same skill set that's going to make you a good coach. So consequently, we've got a lot of supervisors out there doing really poor coaching. And the data actually shows that can harm rep performance almost 2 times as much as good coaching can help it. So I'm going to say that a little bit differently because it's a really, really big point. If you think that there's a chance that your supervisors are out there doing bad coaching, you should actually tell them not to coach at all. So what they're probably doing, and what we find a lot, is it's a lot of scheduled sessions to talk about the metrics and essentially just giving a lot of directive to move the metrics in the right direction, but not much else. So they're putting all the ownership on the rep to really figure out how to better themselves. So when we're working with organizations, we're teaching supervisors how to move beyond that spreadsheet coaching to really diagnose the underlying behaviors that drive those metrics and how to coach to those behaviors in a really targeted and effective way. Going clockwise, we have quality assurance on the bottom right. So you heard Marian talking about this. It's really moving beyond that checklist approach. So we want to be tracking and measuring performance against the right skill set rather than a lot of the 52-point checklists we see out there that, you know, once were created to think about what the customer's perspective might be, but are frankly quite a bit outdated. We're guiding our clients to choose the select competencies that really matter most to the organization. And I like to say the ones that really define the type of service they want their reps delivering in every single interaction. A lot of people think that that might sound like a little bit too much autonomy, but each competency comes with a mastery level that helps you in leadership really determine what a novice looks like, what an expert looks like, and everything in between. And then there's the piece that's most obvious to everyone given the intro to the research, and that's on the bottom left, the rep skills. So through our extensive research, we identified 9 skills that, no matter the scenario, create a low effort client experience. The skills are taught and they're reinforced in a way that they can become that rep's toolkit, like I said, for service. And they're skills like owning and advocating, using positive language, forward resolving future issues that can prevent another callback or chat. That said, even with all of these levers, I want to switch gears a little bit to something I'm pretty passionate about and that I think sets us apart from a lot of other talent offerings out there. And that's the perspective on change management. So having this comprehensive talent strategy is essential, but it's still not enough to make sure that this is a lasting change at your organization. So we encourage all of our clients to really think about what can affect the adoption of new behaviors. So we're big fans of this obscure sporting metaphor that illustrates how we help clients build the plan for transformation that will stick, and it won't just be another flavor of the month training. For anyone who's not familiar with curling, the goal is you slide a stone across an ice rink and you land it on a target. And the goal is to build up enough momentum with the good push of the stone, and then also to sweep the ice in front of the sliding stone that you can control any of the friction to get the stone to right where it needs to be. We find the metaphor plays out in really any change initiative. You have momentum, which will keep desired behaviors going, and you have friction, which will slow the behaviors down or stop them entirely. Mastering the low effort model, for example, really requires motivation across the entire organization to really do something different. And friction that gets in the way will undermine that momentum. So I want to turn it over to Brian first, because he's very much in the thick of rolling out the Effortless Experience right now and subsequently executing that plan for momentum. And he's frankly already had that potential bit of friction in quickly pivoting to a virtual deployment after Indeed Hire sent everyone home from the office in March. So Brian, how are you approaching creating momentum for this change?
I think we're lucky. We started with a lot of traction. We were on a journey of growth for years with almost the same management team, and we had hit a couple of milestones. And so the leadership team that I have in place, we know each other very well. We play to one another's strengths. We have a very solid understanding of what we were trying to accomplish. And this came at a time when we really were looking for a methodology. The momentum is actually something that we're focused on. We are adding awards at the end of this quarter. We refer back to Challenger milestones and Challenger training in almost every meeting that we have as a group, no matter how big or how small. We're sharing wins, all kind of in the context of the Challenger methodology, and also trying to use the vocabulary as much as possible. The momentum for us is kind of stitching together that shared context and I guess the semantics around it at the moment. We hire to values. We have a team that has a lot of different backgrounds, but we're not that dissimilar when it comes to the way we approach things. So we're trying to make sure that we are bringing this lens into what we share and how we share, so that it becomes a more shared conversation of how we're doing things, how we're handling problems, how we're rolling this into our coaching. We did some tactical things recently. We use a platform for coaching called 15-5, which was being used very much like you described. It was kind of a scheduled meeting where we would talk about whether or not you were hitting your goals, and hopefully you would then hit your goals. What we've done is add in questions, and we've changed them twice, I think, so far, around what are you focused on now? It's post the kind of the handshake on development happens, and then we capture that and talk about that with the people that we're leading, again, to try to bring it to the surface, so that we know in our heart of hearts that we will hit our goals when our behaviors are correct. And I guess our momentum is around making sure that we maintain that courage, and we don't lose sight of the fact that our behaviors need to come first, and then the benefits will follow. Marian, what have you done?
Wow. So, Brian, thank you so much. And it's interesting. A lot of the things that you've done, we've also done. And a couple of things that I will highlight with respect to shifting the way we're doing everything. First off, in terms of our hiring practices, we completely changed our hiring practices, and we hired to that type of person. We're looking for that controller. We call it a driver in our organization, right, but it's the same. We're looking for that driver, that person that can really take the customer's issues and just run with it, and to be able to solve problems. That's what we're looking for, right? And so that's one of the things that we're doing. We also, when it comes to training, we brought in the low effort experience training into our actual training program. And so everything is built upon that foundation, from the time we start hiring people to bring them into training, even with just the daily talk, building that vocabulary. So when we're talking about things, we're speaking from that perspective. And so one of the programs that I like to highlight that we're doing, that I get really excited about every single month, is we have a experience engineering case study library. And so let me just tell you what we were doing before we started doing that. We used to call it the best call library. And with the best call library, we would listen to an employee's call in the department meeting every month. And the challenge with that is that you always have to find the best call, the perfect call. And so who learns from a perfect call? If it's perfect, what is there to learn from other than the person did everything right? And so we moved to the experience engineering case study library, and we actually look for calls where things didn't go exactly the way we wanted it to go. And so basically what happens is we listen to the call and we ask the staff to focus on 3 things. The first thing we ask them to focus on is, what did that person do well to deliver a low effort experience for that customer? And so when they're actually sharing the information, they actually share it from a perspective of what competency did they demonstrate. If they demonstrated advocacy, they tell you exactly what that person did to demonstrate advocacy. The second thing that they do is they think about, okay, what were some of the challenges that that person had to deal with when they were servicing that customer? It could have been a system challenge. It could have been a process challenge, right? And so what were some of the things that they did to reduce the effort for the customer? Because it's all about perception. So you want to move that. It is a very high challenged process, but how do you deliver that experience to the customer so they could see it as a low effort process? So that's one of the things that they talk about. What were some of the challenges? And then the last thing that they talk about is, what could that person have done differently to deliver a even lower effort experience? And then that gives all of us an opportunity to learn from one another. That gives us an opportunity to talk about, well, hey, she could have done this instead of that, and then that would reduce effort even more for the customer. And so it is this is a monthly practice for us. So we are developing the language and we are reinforcing it every single month. And what I'm most excited about is it's actually helping helping the employees to be able to take constructive feedback. So how many people can actually have their work critiqued by 80 people in terms of giving feedback? These are employees, their calls are being put on blast, I would say. Every month we're putting a call on blast and people are giving them feedback. And I'm so excited because the team they've actually grown in that area, and they are able to just, not just grow in terms of taking feedback, but in other areas. They are becoming more sophisticated. And so it's pretty cool to see how they've grown. That's one of the things that we're doing. And so that is the one that most excites me because it is helping us to really reinforce the low effort experience.
That's cool.
So with that, get over to Lea. So Lea, what are some of the things that you guys are doing?
Yeah, I think we've stayed flexible and really have iterated along the way. Even though you have plenty of support and guidance from Challenger, I think each business is unique and you may have to tweak some things as far as when you first launch it. And so we really listened to our reps, and we didn't change anything without checking with Amy and team if we were going to kind of switch. So for example, we picked a lot of skills to focus on at first, and probably too many. And we found everybody was really good at active listening. So along the way, I think it was maybe 9 months in, we just got rid of active listening. We're good at it, so let's iterate. Let's focus on something like acknowledging baggage, which my team will not do. And I think it's because every call is baggage. And so they just want to solve the problem. So we're still working on things like acknowledging baggage, which sounds simple, but in practice isn't that easy. And then also we were starting to hear people say to each other, oh, I got dinged on that through their coaching. So I was dinged for not acknowledging baggage. And so we really remodeled the way we're coaching folks. And so we did put our managers through the Effortless coaching program. But even after that, we had to make sure that it's a positive and explain to people there really isn't a perfect call. Like when you're looking for your call each month, there's always something in hindsight when you're not on the spot. that you could have said or done differently. And so to me, the key is iterating and flexing while staying true to the spirit of Effortless Experience. And to this day, we'll see an email that's coming out from my group or some other group, and we're like, oh, I can't believe the word policies in it. You know, so there are still things out there where we're not perfect, but we're learning, and at least now we cringe when we find them.
And I feel like all of you touched on this idea to just kind of continuously encourage that growth mindset that's so important, and that makes sure that it isn't just the training initiative of, you know, 2019 and now it's 2020 and we're on to the next thing. We're going to keep trying to uncover where we can make ourselves all better, and that it's an environment where we're all bettering ourselves all the time.
Agreed.
Yes.
So the one question that everyone always asks is, you know, if you're going to undertake a huge initiative like this, what is the ROI? And I know that there's been some great stories from all three of you and some great quantitative pieces as well. So Brian, obviously you're a little bit earlier in the journey. What are you hearing from the teams, and what's some early signs of success that you've seen?
Well, I'll preface that with two things. One is we're a very data-driven organization, so ROI is really important to us, and it's going to be measured, and I know it's going to work out in the end. So I've focused less on the quantitative ROI this early in the process. I'll be honest, because I came at this from a talent standpoint, when we decided to go with Challenger, I was head over heels. If we just get a coherent coaching methodology in place with our teams, it would be worth everything to me. Just the ability to have confidence, to sleep at night and know that that the newest person on our team can talk to any one of our leads and get specific and actionable feedback about how they can develop, it is number one for me. We're going to grow a lot in the next few years, people-wise, revenue-wise, everything-wise. And I find what I take most to heart is that these aren't easy jobs to walk into as your second job or your first job, sometimes out of school. And it's really tough when you hear just keep doing what you're doing or try harder is not how we're going to scale our organization. So for me, the coaching is everything. I asked my team, I was on a meeting this morning with all of our leads and all of our managers, and I asked our leads, a lead for us manages 10 to 20 people at a time, and they'll have 2 people on their team who work as, we call them coaches, but they're actually mentors. We're going to, I asked them what was most impactful for them, and it was okay to be qualitative. I got three themes, 3 responses, and one was the level of engagement from the teams has been off the charts. They love the idea that there's lots of ways to flex and use their own talents to achieve what we're asking them to achieve. They love us going from a checklist to working on one thing at a time when it comes to coaching and what we're going to accomplish with them. Another one that came out as a leader, the handshake on development was something that we didn't have. We assumed everybody was going to develop in the 200 ways or 300 ways we talked to them about that day. The checklist is only the beginning. There's a million ways. Like, there's the perfect call, right? It's like what Marian said, like, there's a million ways to do it wrong. There's a million things you could do differently. The leaders themselves have liked getting that nod from the person that, yeah, I agree, this is what we're going to work on. And then slowing it down and simplifying it skill by skill and behavior by behavior. And like Lee said, sometimes we're good at stuff. We just get past it. We're not allowed to dwell on what we're good at either in this. And the third one that came up, so the level of engagement, the handshake on development was very important to us. And the ask versus tell, which was brought up by someone who, as I alluded to earlier, is not a controller type. She's a leader. She's a very, very empathetic, very high EQ leader, and has had some problems in the past with crucial conversations or hard conversations. And she said that the ask versus tell has been a big differentiator for her. Just instead of having to tell her teams or always telling her teams what to do, being able to let them tell her how they're going to overcome something or what they're going to work on, or listening to a call and asking them what they hear, has allowed her to see that she's not really being that tough on people. We're our worst critics generally. The voices in our head are a lot tougher than our leaders are in a lot of cases. And they'll call out what they need to work on. That and across the board, an increased accountability at every level of the organization for making things easier. We love accountability. It drives everything that we do. We're the people part of a product. You write one line of code and it can last forever. We are a high cost, high touch, warm, fuzzy feeling part of a computer product. And for us, that means that we can never be the shortest leg on the table. We always have to be accountable to our seat at the table, the value that we add. And this has led to a greater understanding of what value we add for our clients. So all good stuff.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Awesome.
Lea, what about you? What are some of the qualitative, quantitative pieces of ROI you have?
I think the main one is our CSAT scores, and it was also interesting for us to be able to talk about things like, hey, we're really good at active listening. I wouldn't have been able to tell you that before, this common language and common understanding of our service skills. So that was really valuable. And then at first we tried to measure, and I think you might even told us not to do this, but we did anyways, where we tried to score our own effortless experience, like where are we as a department, teams, people. And that really doesn't work because then people start seeing how your effortless scoring may not change, right? You're bringing new people in, so you don't really see, you might see a lift, but then as people rotate through, right, you kind of go back down to the beginning. So we went away from that. Also, some of the managers didn't like it. Well, why am I coaching if this number's not moving? And so at the end of the day, we just said, throw that all out. All we care about are our customers happy. And so we use our CSAT scores, and then we can use the effortless experience and the coaching to try to lift them up if we're noticing that we're bad in an area. So for like us, acknowledging baggage. I even teased a team. We have a team that every single call that comes through, the customers are upset. I'm like, you all are the subject matter experts on acknowledging baggage. Could you do it? And so, so I do think, yes, there are some good measures you can put in place. And then I think listen to your reps. Just anecdotally, when I heard that I'm getting dinged, I'm like, oh, wait. You know, we don't want, that's not the purpose of this. It's just a tool to help us coach you and for you to use to make your calls and your customer conversations go smoothly and make your day easier.
Yeah, Lea, I actually quote you without actually saying your name all the time about that common language being kind of the first success measure that you saw.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that there's all these concepts out there, and assigning a name to them gives you a way to coach and direct people. Yeah. So Marian, you already alluded a little bit to your ROI, but would love to hear a little bit more.
Yeah, so I'm going to kind of focus on quantitative measurements first. So I talked to, well, I mentioned earlier that we are JD Power certified organization, and we've been certified for the past 8 years. And after implementing the Effortless Experience strategy with Challenger, our scorage jumped 43 points, and that is CSAT score jumped 43 points, and that's just unheard of. And along with that, we received the highest CSAT score amongst all of the certified contact centers last year in 2018, and we were the second highest in the history of JD Power. So that was really something to be proud of. And so, of course, do we toot our horn about that? Yes, we do, because this is an opportunity to share with the entire organization how this training has really changed the way we're doing things in customer support. Also, another thing that it has done that we've seen is just the engagement. the engagement is just off the chart with the employees, and the engagement between the peers. I mean, they're actually able to have a conversation with one another and say to someone, you know, you could have handled that baggage differently. And people don't get upset about it, you know. So again, we're evolving, and that common language that Lee talked about and Brian talked about, it is something that it actually helps us to be able to have a conversation with each other, and we actually understand exactly what that person could have done differently. Mm-hmm. And that's another thing that it has done. And then the one thing that I'm most excited about, and I'm sure that you guys will be able to relate to this. So my department, it's like the hub for the entire organization. I mean, I talked about all the different activities that we're responsible for: order management and service management, contract execution, customer master data, and all those things. And so invoicing. So this requires us to interact with all the other departments. And so the customers will come to customer support, and they will get this consistent experience amongst all the folks in customer support. But if we had to transfer them out to another department, like say accounts receivable, that experience will be a bit different. And so after our scores, really CSAT scores jumped so high, and the president of our company actually talked about it at the national business meeting, because they even saw a difference in how we were even dealing with our internal customers. This is a huge win. I'm so excited, guys. We're actually going to be rolling out the customer low effort experience training for all of the customer touchpoint departments in the organization. Mm-hmm. And so true transformation can't happen until everyone takes part in owning that customer experience. Brian, I love what you said about the accountability. Everyone has to be accountable for the customer experience. And so with that, once we roll it out to the entire organization, now the entire organization has developed the same language around how to handle the customer. This whole organization understands what it really means to advocate for the customer. And so I'm super excited about that. And this is something that we're working on right now. And we hope to be rolling it out within the next few months. So pretty excited about that. I think that's a huge, huge statement for the entire organization.
That's really cool. We have, we see it also even as early as we are, that when we voice concerns or we ask for improvements in our software or our processes, our billing processes, it's not our opinion anymore. It's generally about, well, this is going to be easier for our client. And we want this to be easy. This is making it harder than it has to be for someone to use this feature. And just that has helped and crept into conversations with the product teams and with our business operations teams. And I foresee the same thing. Like, it's my goal also that people can see that change once we get that quantification. And, you know, within a year or two, we have our engineers and our product people going through the same kind of, maybe an abbreviated training, but the same kind of understanding that this is everybody's job.
So good. That's so good, cool. Brian.
Second highest JD Power score ever, huh?
Yes, yes.
I'd have a hat.
Awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, you do need a
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you everyone so much for tuning in, and massive thanks to Lea, Marian, and Brian for sharing those experiences and all of your perspectives. If anyone has any questions about becoming a low effort organization, please reach out. I think my email is about to be on the screen. And if you need a little bit more information first, definitely check out Lauren Pragoff's session later today at 3:15 Eastern. She's going to be talking about one of our low effort skills. And then Scott Rothman's replay on our coaching framework should be available in the coming days. It was a session earlier today that was entitled "The Most Important Lever Contact Centers Aren't Pulling." So I know our panel, given the conversation, will appreciate that. But have a great day, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the summit.